And so I just be open, be able to communicate. And one other piece I will add to this, I had a young man commit to my program, visit, scholarship, all that stuff, done deal, committed. And then this summer, went 18 days without responding to a text, phone call, nothing. Like at one point I was reaching out to his coach and saying, hey, is this do we need to do a wellness check? Like, is this young man, is he okay? And after 18 days got back, hey, sorry, coach, my bad, didn't get back to you. And it was done. It was over. Say, hey, I'm glad you're okay, but this isn't going to be a good spot for you. And the young man didn't understand. I'm committed. Everything's done. Yeah, but you didn't communicate for 18 days. Not even a, hey, coach, I'm going on a vacation. Hey, coach, sorry. It was just literally just 18 days. And then what I got after those 18 days was, oh, okay, coach, I'll follow up with, whatever I asked him 18 days ago. Like, no, that doesn't work. And that young man's not in this program now simply because he didn't get back to me.
Coach Jarvis, what advice do you?
Dreaming of playing college basketball? The recruiting process can be overwhelming, but with Net Results Recruiting, you're not alone. My name is Steve Schafer. I'm the founder and president of Net Results Recruiting, a full-service basketball recruiting solution based in Arizona. I spent 21 years coaching college basketball at 3 different levels, decided to get out of coaching because I really wanted to start something that's truly going to help players, families navigate the college basketball recruiting process. There's a lot of companies out there, but I don't know that they all do the things that Net Results Recruiting provides. Our goal is to find options for players that are the right fit at the right level so players can have a great experience playing college basketball. College recruiting is competitive. If you're not getting the exposure you need, you could be missing out on opportunities. Coaches can't recruit you if they don't know who you are. At Net Results Recruiting, we take the guesswork out of the process by providing a complete recruiting solution, including a personalized recruiting profile that has the right information that college coaches want to see, an evaluation of your game to help us assess what levels you can play at, and a tool to help you improve your game. A player priority list that allows your recruiting expert to understand what is important to you when considering potential college options. Promotion to college coaches and a huge network of college coaching contacts to maximize your exposure. And finally, expert guidance and advice throughout your recruitment journey. Don't leave your future to chance. Get started today with Net Results Recruiting and take control of your basketball journey. Your dream, your future, let's make it happen together.
Welcome to the Recruiting Assist, brought to you by Net Results Recruiting. My name is Matt Bright, Regional Director of Recruiting for Net Results. Joining me as always from sunny Phoenix, Arizona, is our President and Founder, Steve Schafer. What's going on, Coacher?
Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm good. Cooler weather's finally here. I know you told me when we talked yesterday, it's almost out of triple digits there, but it's Coach Jarvis will attest. It's beautiful here in St. Louis. Fall's come early, so it's great. So we got some special guests tonight.
We do. I'm excited for tonight's episode about NAIA basketball. As you know, Matt, I coached at that level for 5 years and love the level. I think it's a great level of basketball. I think it's a level that not a lot of people, at least in our line of work, know much about. So to be able to have, a bit of time here to talk about NAIA basketball and all that entails is, I think, going to be really good for our audience. So we've got 2 special guests tonight, Frank Woodford and Taylor Jarvis. So we're really fired up to introduce them. Frank Woodford is the head men's basketball coach at Benedictine University-Mesa, Arizona. He's entering his 9th year at Benedictine, his 6th year as the head coach. In his 5 years as head coach, Frank has taken BenU to 2 NAIA postseason tournaments and 1 Cal-Pac Conference League championship. Before Benedictine, Frank spent time as an assistant at both Chandler Gilbert Community College and Northern Arizona University. He has coached at the collegiate level for 12 years at 3 different levels. Welcome to the show, Frank. We're happy to have you on.
Thank you guys very much for having me. Looking forward to it.
And I gave Frank a little bit of a side note. He's 17 wins away from being the all-time winningest coach at Benedictine. So he's going to pass some guy that doesn't know what he's doing. So I'm excited for him to be the all-time winningest coach after this year. So our other guest is Taylor Jarvis. Taylor is the head men's basketball coach at Missouri Baptist University in St. Louis. He's entering his 2nd year as the head coach at MOBAP. Prior to his appointment as head coach, Taylor spent 4 years as MOBAP's top assistant from 2020 to 2024, helping them to a 64-29 record in that 4-year span. Coach Jarvis is also heavily involved in the Larry Hughes Basketball Academy in St. Louis, serving as the head of skill development and performance. Taylor, we're really fired up to have you on the show tonight. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love talking ball, so this is a good group to talk ball. So I'm pumped to be on here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Coach Jarvis, I'm going to start with you. What makes, because this is something we get, we work with kids across the country, and depending on where you are, certain parts of the country, they have no idea what NAIA basketball is. So what makes it unique compared to NCAA basketball?
I mean, from my experience and like my background's in player development, and I got into basket. My dad was a college coach for a while, but I got into coaching for the relationships, the development side. And I think the NAIA level, you can really create great relationships, genuine relationships at the level, as well as really focus on the player development side. I work at a Baptist institution, and there's a lot of NAIAs that are connected to a Christianity. And I think that's something that's awesome to be a part of as well, to be able to intertwine the two of player development, teaching through basketball, as well as growing these guys as young men. I think that's a different thing than some NCAA institutions, and something that NAIA basketball has to offer.
Coach Frank, same to you. What makes it unique?
Yeah, I'll go kind of on the other side of things, maybe off the court. One thing I really appreciate about the NAIA level is some of the eligibility aspects of it. I like that it's more of a semester versus a clock. So sometimes we'll have some success stories of older guys or athletes that maybe took some time off or came back from injuries and needed a little bit more time than maybe an NCAA clock would allow. And one big thing that we've been really heavy on the last couple of years, and I do think it's starting to change. I think the NCAA is making some changes to adapt because it's been so successful at our level. But I really like the ability to play in a certain percentage of games and not use the season of eligibility. We've been doing that strategically. The last 3 years, we've either brought in like a JUCO transfer that was behind on credits, but we wanted to kind of get them some game reps, or a freshman that we thought had a good career down the line. And we'll suit them up and play them in 5 or 6 varsity games and take them on the road and let them get that experience. But then the year doesn't count against them. And so I really, really like that ability at this level to kind of not burn a kid's eligibility in 1 second of one game, and so I think that eligibility wise, the NAIA does a lot of really unique things that the NCAA doesn't, that can be advantageous to student athletes.
Great point.
Yes. And Frank, I'll stay with you. How would you describe the level of play at the NAIA level to someone who's never watched a game, an NAIA basketball game? And how would you say it compares to maybe other NCAA levels of basketball?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I would tell someone that had never seen an NAIA competition is it's better than you think it is. And I think that that's the honest truth. I just don't think anyone out there that's never seen it would fully understand the quality of athlete that does play at this level. And so I would say, and it's funny when prepping, for this meeting, I tried to look at some of the stats, and I mean, the exhibition season the last several years have all been a lot of NAIAs and in some Division IIIs beating NCAA Division I teams. And so I think that there's no reason why, especially some of the top tier NAIAs in the countries, can't consistently compete with NCAA Division I and clearly Division II competitions. And so I think it fits right in that. I think a lot of the top tier NAIA programs are low-level Division Is, and a lot of the middle tiers are some of those high to mid-level Division II NCAA institutions, for sure, no doubt.
Yeah, and one thing that I always tell players that we're working with is there are pros at every level. And I always resort back to our 18-19 team that we had at Ben, Frank. We had 4 guys on that team that played professional basketball. And I know since I've left and you've been there, you've had multiple kids go on and play professional basketball. Is that right?
Yeah, so I think Benedictine University-Mesa as a whole historically is now at 8 professional athletes. Literally, I'm getting updates on my phone. We have a young man that's playing in a second-round playoff game in Ecuador right now. And then one of my guys from last year just flew to Ireland last week to join them. And then one of my guys from last year is flying to the Philippines in 2 weeks to join a team. And so, yeah, I think 9 or 10 years of program history that's another big piece that we tell, especially high school kids, is that no, we've got a lot of professional athletes at this level that are going on and making a career out of basketball. It can happen from this level, no doubt.
Yeah. And Coach Jarvis, what would you add to that as far as, describing the level of play at the NAIA level?
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off that, it's a wide range of skill, but I mean, the trickle down effect from transfers from Division I guys, we always say, and I always tell guys, there's high level programs, there's low level programs at every level. And, our aspiration at Missouri Baptist is to be a high level program. We have great resources, facilities. We've had high level players. And if you've never seen NAIA basketball, it's pretty good basketball because there's a lot of high level programs, like you were saying, that can compete with Division I's, Division II's at the NCAA level. But it's a wide range. You get the Division I guy that was at we had Corpview that was in the league in the AMC. He was on Texas Tech's roster that made a national tournament run. And, he's older at the time, but you'll get a guy like that, or you'll get a homegrown guy that we had, Brendan Hardy, who was an All-American from Farmington here in town that was under-recruited. But he could hang and play at any level. He would have had opportunities at the Division I, Division II if he wanted to, but he wanted to stay because the competition and the value to win and the resources that we had was just as good as some of the Division I, Division II's that were interested in him. So it's just a wide range of kind of skill, ability, but it's good basketball.
I remember, that's a good point you made. I remember my first year at Benedictine, we played in a tournament in Las Vegas. We played Westmont, and Westmont was coming off the national title the year before. And they brought in a transfer from St. John's in the Big East, 6'10" kid, and he did not start at Westmont that year. They had a kid that was an All-American ahead of him that was on that national title team that was a senior that was better. And so that's a great point. There's a wide range of talent, skill level at the NAIA level. So that's great.
Coach Jarvis, what's some misconceptions about NAIA basketball?
I think a big one, scholarshiping, funds, resources. We can compete with low major Division I's and Division II programs at the NCAA level when it comes to scholarshiping. We're able to scholarship. Some think that, that we're like a Division III where we don't have as many resources to scholarship. I think that's a big one. That's kind of the first one that comes to my mind. I have to think about a few more.
Coach Woodford, what about you? What do you think some misconceptions are?
Yeah, I jotted a couple down. We've already talked on level of talent. I think that's a big one right there. Scholarships was the number 2 I listed, just because a lot of people don't realize that you can get some really, really competitive packages. The other 2 I put is, one, sometimes I get a lot of assuming because it's NAIA, it's a small school in the middle of nowhere, like not understanding there are NAIAs in major metropolitan cities, just assuming it's just rural areas. And then the other one I put is a lot of people think it's an easy place to play at. That has to do with talent, but even with transfers, I know that we're going to talk about the transfer portal at some point, but even right now, Division I, Division II guys I talk to assume that they're going to come, like Coach Schafer already said, they're going to assume that, okay, I'll go NAIA, I'll start, I'll be all conference, I'll be the best player in the league. And it's just, that's a major misconception that higher level guys automatically translate to high level minutes at this level.
And Coach Jarvis, how has the growth of the transfer portal affected NAIA recruiting and the rosters, like overall and specifically your program?
Well, it's definitely trickled down to make the competition better at our level. In the past when I was an assistant, we were very transfer heavy. So we benefited from it a ton. Our all-conference guys last year were both transfers, Evan Palmquist, Brevin McMullen. Evan was at McNeese State, was a Division I guy, and then Brevin kind of bounced around. He was Division II and a JUCO guy. It's definitely benefited us that we're able to get some talented players. The way that I'm doing things, I'm bringing in a few more freshmen. I really value freshmen because the player development aspect. But I think because of the transfer portal, you can get some high-level freshmen. And I have some really good transfers that we have coming in, but I'm more of a 50-50 split. If we're going to have 3 transfers, I'd like to have 3 freshmen. I think those freshmen can really help you build the core and the foundation of your program and the culture, guys that are with you for a little bit longer, even if they level up at some point, and kind of balance out some of the transfers within that. But it's definitely added some value for sure. It's definitely changed the recruiting landscape. And I think we can gather and you can get some higher level high school guys that would have gone Division I, Division II in the past and take advantage of it kind of on both ends, to where you're getting, some young talent as well as some guys that are proven that can come in and impact right away.
Great. And Coach Woodford, how about, for you and for your program, and how's it affected the Golden West and the West Region NAIA conferences that you've seen?
Yeah, I think you can see it for sure. I think that there's a high transfer rate for sure of Division I and Division II players then coming down to the NAIA level. But Coach Taylor touched on a really big point, and one thing I was going to talk about specifically is that I think that some NAIA at the NAIA level and probably Division III, I'm not sure, but we're starting to get some really, really good high school and junior college transfers, because you're starting to see some of those higher levels, Division I and Division II, wait around and see what's in the portal. And so now I definitely think we've seen an uptick in, to be 100% transparent, there were years ago when we couldn't get all conference JUCO guys. If you were all conference JUCO, you were probably going Division II or Division I. And now it's, we're getting defensive player of the year kind of JUCO guys from some leagues, because they're not getting those same Division I and Division II offers that they were before the transfer portal. And again, high school guys, it used to be very rare that we could find a freshman that was good enough to make an impact. And now the last 3 years in a row, it's freshmen that are good enough to make an impact, because they're not getting recruited as heavily by the other areas, for sure.
So we've already kind of touched on this, but Coach Jarvis, can you elaborate, how do scholarships work at MOBAP specifically, in terms of what you can, what do you have to offer kids?
Yeah. So, we've worked on two different spectrums. We've had, discount rate, and then we've had the pot of money. So, NAIAs usually operate that way, to where it's a little bit different than some NCAAs, because we have some larger rosters, some of us. But for us here, our varsity guys, most of them, it's tuition that we're able to compete and get up there with, depending on kind of GPA. And then we have some nice on-campus living, but majority of our guys in our program, since we're in St. Louis, prefer to live off campus. We have some decent apartments kind of in the area, and those for us, we can't scholarship, but we're able to take care of our guys and have some really competitive offers to compete with local Division IIs and even some of the low major Division Is from a scholarship package. But for us, we don't stack academic and athletic. It's just the one athletic offer that we're able to give. And then our program, we have our developmental program as well. So we have about 40 guys in our whole program. So kind of the scholarship ranges depending on where you're coming in, what program you're coming in at.
Coach Woodford, how do scholarships work for you guys at U Mesa?
And see, that's what's interesting about the NAIA is we're probably the polar opposite. Every single player on my program, my best player, he's going to pay something towards tuition. We don't cover housing in any capacity, so all my guys need to cover housing. And so, but again, very different than Coach Jarvis is. We're stackable. So when I build out a package, we can be competitive based on your GPA, based on your test scores, based sometimes, on a major, if we need to be bringing in a specific major. We also have a lot of affiliate awards. Like for me, if I bring in a Mesa resident or a Maricopa Community College student or a student graduating from a Catholic high school, those all stack. And so if I can be strategic and bring in a quality GPA from Mesa or a quality GPA from a Catholic high school, then those students are going to get their academic, their Catholic, their Mesa, and their basketball. And then that's when we can start to build out competitive packages, But for me, it's really tough for me to bring in a student with a 2.2 GPA, So I have to be strategic on the academic side too, not just on the basketball talent.
And I'm glad that you guys brought that up, because that's one thing that we get when we talk with families is when we try to educate them, we tell them, even within levels like NAIA, it's different school by school within a conference. Even schools on the same street can have totally different. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And both of you hit on academics. I'm jumping all over the place. What we preach this all the time to the kids at your GPA. Coach Jarvis, you brought it up first. what are you looking for GPA wise?
For us, it since we don't stack, there's not a huge benefit for it. But I believe, I wasn't the best student. I was like a 2.8, and some of that was I needed somebody right here behind me to tell me to do it. I love basketball, the academic side. I had to get pushed in the butt a little bit. But for me, I believe, in building that culture, you have to have guys that are willing to go above and beyond in the classroom as well. That shows their work ethic. It shows who they are off the basketball court. So for me, our team GPA goal is a 3.3. And that's where we try to shoot for. I have a lot of really high academic guys that are in the program. Last year we were around a 3.09 GPA. So this year we're reaching a little bit higher just because I believe the guys that we got in our program this year can do it. But it really just depends. My big thing is trying to meet you where you're at. If you're a 2.7 in high school, let's try to get you to a 3.0. Let's try to challenge you because I know you can do a little bit more than what you think you can. If it's a guy that has had a really hard time staying eligible and he's a 2.0, let's try to get a 2.5. For me, it's all about growth and development, no matter where you're coming in academically. If you are a high academic student, it's only going to help your offers and interest because, like Coach Frank was saying, there's going to be so many other programs that can stack and that can mold scholarships around and adjust things because of the academic side.
And Coach Woodford, can you just talk about some different thresholds of real dollars and cents of, a 3.2 versus a 3.5? What is that? That's thousands of dollars.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why I tell kids all the time, be very honest. And I'm sure you guys cover this already, but be honest in your recruitment process. If you're a 2.9, don't tell me you're a 3.0, because that difference, when I'm considering you as an athlete, I say, man, he's a 3.0, 6'5" wing. I can get him this much money. He goes to this high school. I have this much athletic available. Man, this is going to be great. And then I bring you on campus and I look at transcripts and you're a 2.9 now, not a 3.0. And that can be, that can be $1,000 difference. It can be a $5,000 difference. And so it's okay if you're a 2.9, but be a 2.9. Like I tell, whenever I work camps, it's okay to be a 5'11" guard, but be a 5'11" guard. Don't be a 6'1" guard on paper, because once you show up and you're a 5'11" guard, that's who you are. And so, GPA is very, very important. For us, I don't have a number, but I basically will work with a recruit. Well, what can you afford? And if they tell me they can't afford anything, then they need to be a 4.0 student. And so if you're a 2.5 and can't afford anything, then Benedictine's not a good fit for you. If you're a 2.5 and you can afford what that package gets you, then great. I'll definitely consider you to be an athlete here, but then only if you can afford to be a 2.5 GPA student here, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. Great point.
Yeah. And I understand the scholarship piece here too, because one thing that I don't think a lot of people understand is, yes, NAI gives athletic scholarships. Fully funded NAI programs have 8 scholarships. Not every NAI is fully funded, as we've kind of talked about. I know, with Frank and I being a Benedictine, when I was there, we were working off 2 scholarships. There were schools in our league, and there were schools in our state that had 8. And so when we're going up against those schools, we didn't win the battle very, very often with the scholarship piece because we didn't have the money that we could throw out to those kids that these other schools had. And so, Coach Woodford, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the things schools can do at the NAI level. We could do it at Benedictine, but I know being a compliance person, there's exemptions and things that go into NAI scholarshiping. Can you kind of just briefly kind of talk about what that is and how some schools can use that to their advantage and bring in more kids, more scholarships?
Yeah, definitely. So, there's a couple different exemptions at the NAI level. One can be based on high school academics, and then one can be based on your academics once you're at the NAI institution. And so some institutions can be really strategic with that when they know that they have some high level academic students. And so basically what the NAI will do is they will essentially waive some percentage of scholarship allotments based on academics. And so what that can mean is that an institution can then provide additional aid because they know that that's going to be waived at the end of the year. And so again, all that does though is promote the NAI providing more opportunities to those students. And to Coach Schafer's point is, if one of these schools is comparing a 3.5 to a 3.2, they'll probably take the 3.2 or 3.5 student more often than not, because they expect that student to probably continue to be a 3.5 at the college level, and then know that that student will then be an exemption later on. And so that's why, again, the academics should be so crucial up front, because if you're similar enough skill wise or talent wise, you're always the higher GPA is always going to be picked.
Yeah.
It's close.
So what you're saying is, if you're a current college player and you're a certain GPA, your scholarship could potentially not even count towards the 8 scholarships that school can provide.
Right. And then that school can realistically provide 9 or 10 because they're going to be waiving some others.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's something the NCAA does not do, which is a huge difference. So and Coach Jarvis, can you talk about how many you got 40 on your roster? Obviously I would assume 15 varsity guys, and then you've got the JV program. But how many players do you typically recruit in a given year?
Well, I mean, these first 2 years, it's been more than just with Coach Ingram. He took over at Maryville. So when that happened, I had to go out and get 8 of them. And then this year we had a huge senior class, so I had to go out and get about 8 of them as well. But most years it's going to be anywhere between 100, 200 targets, kids between our JV and our varsity program. We'll break it down into our varsity targets and our JV guys. But I mean, my phone, I talked to somebody about trying to get a second phone just because of how many conversations and how many guys you got to recruit, and to try to find the right people and the ones that are going to fit right academically as well as culture wise. I mean, you go through a lot of kids when you're going through that. And once you kind of target in on the ones you really love, that's when you really hit those guys hard. But I would say anywhere from, 100 to 200 guys each year that you're on and recruiting. And then you kind of keep funneling it down to the guys that you think really belong in your program.
Coach Woodford, how about you guys? What's your roster size, and how many kids do you typically recruit in a given year?
Yeah, so we'll always carry at least 25 on the roster. That'll be typically 15 that travel and an additional 10 that are not traveling for whatever reason. We typically freshmen will often redshirt, or typically we'll bring in, like I said, I've been very strategic about every year bringing in at least one junior college transfer that is behind on credits to then redshirt and have an extended experience in the program. So now they become a 3-year guy instead of a 2-year guy. And so often part of that 10 will be those kind of guys too. But to Coach's point, I the other day I looked through my phone, and class of 2025, I have 107 contacts for class of 2025, whether that was a junior, a sophomore in JUCO, or a high school kid. So, I mean, and they only make it in my contact list if they're obviously someone that I'm planning to have a conversation with. So, and nobody got added that didn't get a text or a phone call. So, I mean, 107 students in last year's class, whether transfer or high school. And so that was, I think we brought in a class of 12 this year, so 107, and we brought in 12. I mean, that's kind of what students are up against is there's a lot of competition for these spots for sure.
So that leads into, and we always preach to our guys and gals that we're helping about being a great communicator, because there are, both you just said, you have over 100, maybe 200, Coach Jarvis, right?
Yeah.
Kids on a list. So what advice would you give a high school athlete or a junior college kid, or somebody looking to play NAIA basketball? Coach Woodford, I'll start with you. What's some advice you would give that potential prospect to play at your level?
I always say be super open to any coaches that reach out, and because to give you an example, one of my best friends in the whole world is they'll probably start the year as an NCAA Division I top 5 or 6 or 7 team. And so, it's one phone call I could make to a top 5 Division I in the country, and then I have another very good friend who's at, a middle of the pack D3 or a middle of the pack JUCO. And so we're so connected that reach out and answer phone calls, answer emails, because it might not necessarily equate to that school that reached out, but that school that reached out might have a friend. Often I have buddies that'll ask me about Arizona guys. So Division IIs, Division I's. Hey, if you ever go watch Perry High School, check this kid out. And so I might ask Perry High School or reach out to that kid just to see how the kid is before I'm going to put my name on him to my friend. And if that kid doesn't even want to respond to me because I'm an NAIA coach, that's what I'll respond to my buddy. Hey, man, listen, I tried to reach out to the kid, didn't get back to me, so here's his number. You can try. But that's a major red flag. So I recommend, and it's another thing I say at camps all the time, be open and have a conversation with any coach. Because the other piece too is I might go get a Division I job next week. And now maybe you're someone I want to consider, but you didn't even respond to me when I was an NAIA coach. And so I just be open, be able to communicate. And one other piece I will add to this, I had a young man commit to my program, visit, scholarship, all that stuff, done deal, committed. And then this summer, went 18 days without responding to a text, phone call, nothing. Like at one point I was reaching out to his coach and saying, hey, is this do we need to do a wellness check? Like, is this young man, is he okay? And after 18 days, got back, hey, sorry, coach, my bad, didn't get back to you. And it was done. It was over. Say, hey, I'm glad you're okay, but this isn't going to be a good spot for you. And the young man didn't understand. I'm committed. Everything's done. Yeah, but you didn't communicate for 18 days. Not even a, hey, coach, I'm going on a vacation. Hey, coach, sorry. It was just literally just 18 days. And then what I got after those 18 days was, oh, okay, coach, I'll follow up with, whatever I asked him 18 days ago. No, that doesn't work. And that young man's not in this program now, simply because he didn't get back to me.
Basketball players, are you grinding in the gym but struggling to get noticed by college coaches? Your talent deserves the right exposure, and that's where Net Results Recruiting comes in. Whether you're in high school, junior college, or prep school, we help you connect with college programs, get you promoted to college coaches, and receive expert guidance throughout your recruitment journey. Don't leave your future to chance. Get exposure, get guidance, get results. Let our team find your team. Visit netresultsrecruiting.com today and take the next step towards your college basketball dream.